Sue Bird was blindsided. What began as a routine training camp assignment, handing Caitlin Clark jersey number 17, exploded into a full-blown crisis. The decision wasn't just poorly received. It triggered a storm about identity, power, and respect in women's sports. Clark, whose number 22 is inseparable from her rise to global prominence, viewed the move as more than a logistical tweak. It was a deliberate swipe at her influence, branding, and autonomy, especially given that the number 22 was available and unclaimed.
If you're here for the real story and not the filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe.
The pushback wasn't quiet. It reflected a deeper frustration long simmering under the surface. Elite female athletes are tired of being disrespected, and this time, one of the sport's biggest stars refused to stay quiet. The aftermath has exposed a striking power shift. Caitlin Clark's response has not only disrupted Team USA's roster plans, but has forced a public reckoning with outdated institutional behavior. It's not just about numbers. It's about control and who gets to define the image of the sport. Her stance sends a clear message. Athlete identity matters, and organizations can no longer dismiss that without consequence. As public support leans toward Clark, the fallout puts leadership like Sue Bird in an impossible position, forced to choose between defending legacy institutions and recognizing the new era of athlete empowerment that Clark now represents. Sue Bird didn't see this coming. 1 minute, she's leading Team USA's women's basketball program with decades of legacy behind her name. The next, she's at the center of a growing PR meltdown, desperately trying to walk back a decision that may have just pushed the sport's biggest name, Caitlin Clark, right out the door. Yes, Caitlin Clark, one of the most influential athletes in women's basketball today, has reportedly quit Team USA after being benched and told she had to give up her number 22 jersey. And not because someone else already had it. Not because of some unavoidable logistical mix-up. Because Team USA assigned her number 17 without explanation, without discussion, and most importantly, without respect. Let that sink in. They tried to force Caitlin Clark, a player whose number 22 is synonymous with her career, her brand, her legacy, to throw it away like it was nothing. And for what? Control? Optics? To send a message that no single player is bigger than the system? Well, here's the twist. This move backfired. Badly. Now the fallout is undeniable. Clark walked. And Sue Bird? She's scrambling. As Team USA's managing director, Bird is in damage control mode. The jersey number fiasco was supposed to be a small, internal matter. But the second Clark's fans saw her listed as number 17 on the official camp roster, everything exploded. Social media went off. Analysts called it disrespectful. And now, the public narrative isn't about Team USA's strength heading into the Olympics. It's about whether they just drove away the most marketable player in women's basketball. And let's be clear, this isn't just about a number. Caitlin Clark's number 22 is her brand. It's how fans recognize her. It's how she built a following that shattered attendance records, sold out games, and pulled women's basketball into mainstream conversation. Her jersey number is an accessory. It's part of her identity. Stripping it away without any justification, that sends a very specific message. You don't control your image. We do. That's the line Clark refused to cross. Because let's not forget, we're in an era where personal branding is leverage. Athletes build empires around their names and numbers. Michael Jordan's 23. Serena Williams' signature outfits. Wayne Gretzky's 99. These symbols matter. They represent something bigger than just a player. They represent influence, history, legacy. So when Team USA told Caitlin Clark to put on number 17, it wasn't just a jersey swap. It was a calculated move that stripped her of autonomy and tried to cut her down to size. And the fans saw it for exactly what it was. The outrage wasn't just about disrespect. It was about the pattern, the Olympic snub, the dismissive treatment. The way Clark's unprecedented impact keeps being minimized or undermined by the very institutions that are profiting off her name. It's not just frustrating, it's exhausting. And this latest incident proved that, once again, organizations are not prepared to deal with empowered athletes, especially not women demanding to be treated as equals. Sue Bird is now caught between a crumbling narrative and a public that's no longer willing to accept the same excuses. Her leadership role, once seen as a bridge between generations, is under fire. People expected better. They expected a former player, a legend, to get it, to advocate for the next wave of talent. Instead, she presided over a moment that will now be remembered as a massive miscalculation. Because Caitlin Clark's response wasn't just a refusal. It was a statement. Walking away from Team USA, an honor most athletes dream of, isn't easy. It's a high-profile, high-stakes decision. But in doing so, Clark flipped the power dynamic. She made it clear that she won't be disrespected by the same system she helped elevate. And now, Team USA is left in an impossible position. If they backtrack and offer her number 22, it confirms they got it wrong and undermines their stance on control. If they double down, they risk alienating not just Clark, but the massive fan base she brings with her. The mishandling of this situation reflects something much deeper than one player's number. It exposes how much of women's sports is still built on outdated, rigid systems that struggle to handle individual power and identity. Clark isn't just any player. She's a player. She's part of a new generation that isn't afraid to say no, isn't afraid to call out disrespect, and isn't afraid to walk away from opportunities if they come to cost of self-worth. The fact that Team USA thought they could make this change quietly without backlash reveals just how disconnected they are from the current sports culture. Athletes today don't just show up and follow orders. They have platforms. They have followings. They are the marketing. And that power shift is something these organizations are still trying and failing to adjust to. The bigger issue is that this wasn't even necessary. No one else was wearing 22. It wasn't retired. There was no scheduling conflict or logistical reason to deny her request. This wasn't policy. It was politics. And now it's public. The comparison to male athletes only makes the situation worse. When Michael Jordan came back wearing 45, it wasn't because he had to. It was his decision. When Kobe Bryant switched from 8 to 24, it was part of a larger personal narrative. They had agency. Clark, meanwhile, was handed a new number with no explanation and expected to accept it. That double standard is loud. Caitlin Clark's decision to step back isn't just about the number. It's about principle. It's about saying, if you don't respect me now, don't expect me to show up later. And that principle is starting to echo beyond Team USA. Fans, analysts, and athletes alike are asking tougher questions. How often are women in sports asked to sacrifice identity for institutional comfort? How often are their concerns brushed off until something explodes? This controversy has sparked something bigger. It's not just a moment, it's a movement. One that's forcing sports institutions to finally look at how they treat the talent that fuels their success. And the takeaway is clear. The era of obedient silence is over. Caitlin Clark didn't ask for this fight. But now that it's here, she's not backing down. And she's not alone. This is a wake-up call to every organization operating under the assumption that they can still dictate terms to players who've outgrown the system. The days of controlling every aspect of an athlete's image are fading fast. And those who fail to evolve with this shift are going to keep finding themselves exactly where Sue Bird and Team USA are right now, on the wrong side of a very public mess, hoping it doesn't cost them everything. So what do you think? Was Team USA wrong to strip Caitlin of her number? Should Sue Bird have handled it differently? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit like if you're standing with Clark, and share this with someone who still thinks athletes should just fall in line. Don't forget to subscribe, because the story isn't over, and the next chapter could change everything. There's a point in every controversy when it stops being about just one person. That's where we are now. Caitlin Clark's decision to walk away from Team USA didn't just spark headlines. It ignited a reckoning. Because it turns out, when you treat your most influential athlete like she's disposable, you're not just losing a player. You're exposing a system. And this system? It's outdated. It's tone-deaf. It's cracking under the pressure of an era it clearly doesn't understand. Let's not get it twisted. Team USA's choice to assign Caitlin Clark the number 17 wasn't some harmless oversight. It was a deliberate move that stripped away part of her identity, a number that's been with her from Iowa to the pros. A number that isn't just a digit stitched on the back of a jersey. It's part of her story. This is the same number fans wear. The number that sells out in stores. The number that's printed on signs, painted on walls, and screamed from the stands. When Caitlin Clark takes the court, 22 takes a court. That's not marketing fluff. That's brand value. That's cultural weight. That's ownership of an identity. Something women athletes have had to fight tooth and nail to establish. And then, in a matter of seconds, Team USA tries to erase it. Quietly, without explanation, without her consent. They thought she'd go along with it. They thought she'd smile for the cameras, put on number 17, and fall in line. But what they didn't expect was this. That Caitlin Clark would say no. No to being treated like a pawn. No to being stripped of her name, her number, her identity. And that one decision turned into a line in the sand. Not just for her, but for every athlete watching. Because here's what they're all realizing. This isn't a one-off. This isn't about jerseys. It's about respect. About power. About how sports institutions still think they can bulldoze individual identity in the name of team unity, when really it's about control. Let's talk about that control. Team USA has long operated with a kind of untouchable prestige, where the uniform followed the rules, accept the decisions. But the landscape has changed. Athletes now bring their own followings. They bring value that can't be ignored. They are the brand. When you bring in a player like Caitlin Clark, you're not just adding talent. You're adding millions of eyes. You're adding attention, money, media, merchandise. She's not just part of the program. She is the program. And yet, they treated her like she was interchangeable. You don't do that to male athletes. You don't ask legends to switch numbers without a reason. You don't erase identities built over years just because someone in the back office decides they want to send a message. But women athletes? Somehow they're still expected to comply, to sacrifice, to put their personal brand second, no matter how much that brand has elevated the sport. This isn't just disrespectful. It's short-sighted. Because if Clark walks, and she already has, it's not just a PR hit. It's a loss of momentum, a loss of credibility, a signal to every young athlete watching that even when you break records, sell out games, and carry the league on your back, you still don't get a say. And Sue Bird? She's now the face of this fallout. Once the player everyone trusted to lead the next generation, Bird is now in the hot seat. She's not just managing a team anymore. She's managing a mess. One that exposes a massive disconnect between how this organization views power and how the players are demanding it be shared. And it didn't have to be this way. There was no practical reason to deny Clark number 22. It wasn't taken. It wasn't retired. It wasn't some sacred number with historical weight in this context. It was hers, and it should have been treated as such. But instead, the decision was made quietly, bureaucratically, and without regard for what it symbolized. And now, instead of preparing for global competition, the conversation around Team USA is focused on why their biggest star won't wear their jersey. Let's also not ignore the pattern here. This isn't the first time Clark has been sidelined or undermined by elite-level basketball structures. Her Olympic snub sparked outrage, not just because of what she brings to the game, but because it sent a message that popularity doesn't protect you, that influence doesn't shield you, that no matter how much you do for the game, there's always someone ready to tell you to wait your turn. And this number change, it's just more of the same. The people making decisions are trying to downplay it. They want this to fade from the headlines. They want to move on, but the public isn't moving on. Because this moment is exposing something deeper, a broken relationship between institutions and the women who make those institutions profitable. Athletes today aren't just competitors. They're public figures, business women, cultural leaders, and they're finally asking the question, why should I help you build something that doesn't respect me? That question has weight now, and it's not going away. So where does Team USA go from here? Do they try to walk it back? Offer Clark her number? Apologize? Or do they double down, hoping that she'll change her mind, that the public outrage will pass, that she'll come back quietly? But here's the thing. They no longer get to dictate how this plays out. Clark has the leverage, and that's what's truly changed. The power no longer sits solely with governing bodies or legacy leadership. It sits with the athletes, with their platforms, their followers, their influence. And if organizations don't adapt to that, they're going to keep losing the very people they depend on to stay relevant. This controversy isn't just a mistake. It's a warning, a real-time example of what happens when old systems clash with new expectations, when institutions cling to tradition while athletes demand respect. If Team USA wants to survive this era, they have to evolve fast. They have to recognize that respect for athlete identity isn't negotiable anymore, that the power dynamics have shifted, that you can't build your future by alienating the people who are that future. Caitlin Clark's decision didn't just challenge a jersey assignment. It challenged the entire power structure of women's basketball. And everyone's watching what comes next. Are you? So here we are. Caitlin Clark, the most marketable athlete in women's basketball, has walked away from Team USA because of a number. But it's not just a number. That's what people who don't get it keep saying. It's just a jersey, just digits on the back. No, it's not. Because this isn't about vanity. This is about visibility. It's about respect. It's about what happens when the people in charge fail to grasp the cultural weight of identity in modern sports. Clark's number 22 isn't random. It's stitched into her legacy. It's what little girls paint on their homemade signs. It's the number on all those sold-out jerseys. It's the number she's worn as she built a career that shifted the landscape of women's basketball entirely. You don't just take that away and act like it's no big deal. But Team USA tried, and now they're dealing with the consequences. The moment Clark's number 17 was made public, fans noticed. Social media lit up. Comment sections exploded. The question was loud and clear. Why would you strip a player of their identity, especially when it costs you nothing to do the right thing? And when that question hit the public sphere, Team USA froze. There was no clear explanation, no transparency, no accountability. Just radio silence while the story spiraled. All while Sue Bird, a basketball icon now thrust into the role of crisis manager, was left to try and control the damage from inside the house. Bird, once seen as the bridge between the old and new generation, now looks caught in the middle, defending a system that just embarrassed itself. This wasn't supposed to happen under her leadership, but it did. And now, that legacy is complicated. The decision to assign Clark number 17 wasn't made in a vacuum. It was made in a room by people who thought they could sidestep the significance of her presence. It was made by people who underestimated the power of athlete identity in 2025. And it shows exactly how far sports institutions still have to go when it comes to understanding the modern athlete. Because let's be honest, if this were an NBA player, we wouldn't be having this conversation. The number would have never been reassigned. The player's identity, brand, and value would have been treated as sacrosanct. But this is women's sports, and that double standard still runs deep. Caitlin Clark has become a symbol of what happens when women athletes stop playing along. She's not here to wait her turn. She is the moment. Her refusal to quietly accept being diminished isn't just a personal decision. It's a cultural shift. And that's why the backlash is so loud. Because fans are tired of the gaslighting. They watched as Clark's influence gets downplayed in headlines. They've watched her Olympic snub get dismissed. They watch media personalities claim she needs to prove herself, even as she breaks attendance and viewership records. Now they're watching this. Another example of how women in sports are constantly asked to shrink themselves to make institutions more comfortable, to be team players in a system that won't even honor their identities. It's exhausting. It's blatant. And this time, Caitlin Clark said no. She walked away. And in doing so, she didn't just protest a decision. She exposed a power imbalance. She reminded everyone watching that these athletes are not owned. They are not interchangeable. They are not here to be managed like inventory on a spreadsheet. They are brands. They are businesses. They are the reason people tune in. And when an institution refuses to respect that, there are consequences. Team USA is now stuck in limbo. The optics are terrible. They've alienated the player that brought unprecedented national interest to the sport. They've shown every young athlete exactly what not to expect when they reach the top, and they've damaged trust. Not just with Clark, but with a fan base that's tired of seeing their heroes disrespected. There's no easy fix for this. You can't slap a Band-Aid over a fracture this deep. The organization now has to reckon with how it operates. Because the days of athletes accepting disrespect quietly are over. The new generation is watching and learning, and they won't play by the old rules. This controversy proves one thing above all: the culture needs to change. Organizations can't treat athletes like property and expect loyalty. They can't build hype around a player and then erase the very things that made her iconic. They can't keep pretending that women's sports are just lucky to have a spotlight, when the athletes themselves are the ones creating that spotlight. And here's the other truth no one in Team USA's boardroom seems to grasp. Clark holds the leverage. Not them. Not anymore. Because wherever she goes, fans follow. Media follows. Revenue follows. Her decision to step back sends a message that goes beyond basketball. It tells every athlete, you can say no. You can walk away. You can demand better and still win. The reaction from the public has been loud for a reason. People are tired of watching systems punish women for having power. They're tired of seeing greatness treated like a threat instead of an asset. They're tired of the disrespect being framed as protocol. And this time, they're not letting it slide. So what now? Will Team USA course correct? Will they reach out to Clark, admit they were wrong, and restore her number 22? Or will they dig in, stubbornly clinging to a structure that's already starting to collapse? Whatever happens next, the damage is done. The trust has been broken, and no one forgetting how it happened. Caitlin Clark stood her ground, and by doing so, she made it clear that the rules have changed. The era of institutional control over athlete identity is over. The future belongs to those who are ready to lead it, not those still trying to manage it from behind closed doors. Drop a comment if you think this was mishandled from the start. Hit like if you believe athlete identity matters. Share this with someone still asking, what's the big deal about a number? And don't forget to subscribe, because if this is how Team USA handles one jersey, what happens when the next generation shows up with even more power? We'll be here, breaking it down. Every misstep, every turning point, every moment that pushes women's sports closer to the respect it's always deserved.